Hello, I am Peter Okwacha. Welcome to Focus on Africa. Our top stories. Celebrations in Sudan after the military and opposition reach a deal to form a transitional government.
This agreement will be comprehensive and will not exclude anyone, and will also reach up to the ambitions of the Sudanese people and its pure revolution.
So is this finally the beginning of a new era for Sudan? We'll look at the details of the deal. What price a life? 10 years after her son died in police custody, a Ugandan mother is awarded compensation, but says justice hasn't been done. Also on the program, worth 1,000 words. Meet the photographer painting a picture of Nigeria that most of us never see.
The way we are being reported in the West is not the way we are. And I'm trying to change the narrative, starting from Nigeria.
The Africa Cup of Nations in Egypt, where the knockout stages are underway. The first game is in action. There's a shock on the cards. Benin lead Morocco late on.
Thanks for joining us here on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Crowds have celebrated in the streets of the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, after the ruling military council and opposition alliance struck a power-sharing deal to form a transitional government. It comes after weeks of intense African Union mediation following the brutal suppression of mass protests a month ago. If successful, after a 3-year transition period, the country will hold a general election. So what's in this deal? Under the new power-sharing arrangement, the transitional government will be made up of 11 representatives, 5 civilians and 5 from the military, and one other who the AU mediators say may or may not be a retired military officer. Before an election can be held, the transitional agreement will see the military in charge for the first 21 months, then a civilian-run administration for the remaining 18 months. Also included in the agreement is an investigation into a military crackdown that took place on June the 3rd. At least 128 people were killed. Let's get more now from Ansoy.
The moment they've waited for so long. They risked it all to see this day, when the military would allow civilians to rule in Sudan. Celebrations broke out as soon as the announcement was made. And as a sign of new beginnings, there were no security officers in the streets for the first time in months. But the military are not going anywhere yet.
This agreement will be comprehensive and will not exclude anyone, and will also reach up to the ambitions of the Sudanese people and its pure revolution.
African Union mediators said the military would head the top decision-making body for the first year and a half.
The two parties have agreed to form the Sovereign Council equally between them, military and civilian, for the period of 3 years or more. And they have also agreed a civilian independent government, technocrats led by a prime minister, which will be capable and work for the country.
But it's not lost on the civilian leaders that the task at hand is enormous.
This agreement opens the path for establishment of transitional bodies, which will begin executing reformation programs in all social, political and economic aspects. The first of which is the issue of peace and the independent, transparent investigation and punishment of the killers of the martyrs.
Even as some savor the moment, others are already skeptical about the deal and have been suspicious of the military's intentions all along. Sudan is now entering a new phase, a transition to a government of compromise, to calm the tensions of the past few months, and many hope chart a new path for the country. Anne Soy, BBC News.
Let's go to Khartoum now and speak to political activist Lena Haiba. She joins me on the phone. Lena, what's your reaction to this agreement?
Hello, hi, good evening to you. Well, we cannot feel the positive vibe yet as political activists because there is no clarity nor transparency yet. Yes, the deal is made, but what about the signature of the deal? 1, 2, what about the transparency and the details of the deal to the Sudanese people that have been protesting since December 2018?
I know we don't have all the details to this deal yet, Lena, but we do understand that there'll be a transitional government or transitional council made up of 5 civilians and 5 people from the military. The military will rule for 21 months, while the civilians will rule for the next 18 months. Are you happy with this?
Well, we can still not be happy for one reason, because we do not know who is the 11th person candidate. The 11th candidate, yes, 5 civilians, 5 from the military, but what about the 6th candidate that is supposed to be civilian? That candidate is from the military that stepped down. That's 20+ billion question marks in all heads of Sudanese people.
At this point, Lena, people would be saying it's time for the country to move on. Every side should agree to give concessions.
Well, we are okay, and we agree that the country should move on, and that we should move on, and not having a government for so long could backfire on us. But we need the details, we need transparency from the opposition and the transition military council.
Okay, Lena Haibi there, political activist in Khartoum. Thank you very much for your thoughts. So some people like this deal and others don't. Let's get more context on it now. Adem Abebe is a Sudan analyst for the think tank International Idea and joins me live from The Hague. Adem, what do you make of the deal?
Thank you very much, Peter. I think it's a big breakthrough. They have been stuck essentially on the composition of this council for very long. They had agreements on other issues, but they couldn't agree on this particular organ. And now that they have it, I think it's a major milestone. But as Lena said, this is only the beginning. It provides for other agreements. And as you know, the devil is in the details. So we have to wait and see, in particular in terms of the decision rules. How are they going to take decision in this particular organ? But it is, I think, a milestone worth celebrating because they have been stuck on this. But hopefully the momentum will build and will agree on a lot of other issues as well.
And indeed, we have seen crowds in Khartoum celebrating today. Do you think both sides trust each other enough to uphold their ends of the deal?
Implementation is of the essence, obviously, and trust. They have had trust issues, and I think they cannot bring it back so quickly. But to be able to develop trust, they will have to work together. And I think the fact that there is an equal number of military and civilians with a neutral 11th member, I think when they work together, they will be able to develop that trust that will be necessary to do a lot of, this is a big issue, but they have more challenges ahead. So they would have to build trust as they go on.
And you mentioned those challenges that will be ahead of them. You know, it includes a legislature that, appeals to everyone, as well as a cabinet that can work with this council.
Yeah, certainly. So far, in terms of the cabinet, there are indications that it will be civilian, but the details, again, are not clear. But what is interesting that they had agreed on the Legislative Council earlier, but that seems to have fallen apart. So they have to agree again. And once they have established these institutions, they would have to work on a new constitution. They would have to revive the ailing economy. And of course, they have to bring all the armed groups, all the armed factions around the country together towards a peaceful Sudan. So the challenges are enormous, but I think that they have managed to agree on such an important issue will build momentum, and we can only hope that it will lead to more consensus and better implementation.
Very quickly, the elephant in the room, Mohammed al-Bashir, he's still in jail. What do you think is going to happen to him?
Well, what I can say is what they have said will not happen, and that is that they will not hand him over to the International Criminal Court. At the moment, he's facing corruption charges and money laundering charges, I understand. But what they will do at home in Sudan, we don't really know. But we know that they've said they will not transfer him to the International Criminal Court.
Okay, Adem Abebe, a Sudan analyst speaking to me there from The Hague. Thank you very much for your insight into that story.
Thank you.
Let's take a quick look now at other stories making the headlines across Africa. There have been more protests in Algeria with people demanding new democratic leadership. This is the 20th consecutive Friday that demonstrations have taken place, and it's also the country's Independence Day. A wave of unrest led to longtime President Abdelaziz Bouteflika being ousted in April. An interim president was appointed, but demonstrators want free and fair elections. In Malawi, protests are continuing for a second day with people demanding the country's Electoral Commission chief resign. Police have used tear gas to disperse crowds in the capital, Lilongwe, and the commercial capital, Blantyre. Opposition parties claim there were massive irregularities in May's elections. Egypt has increased fuel prices by up to 30%. It's the fifth price hike since introducing a group of tough economic reforms in 2014 to meet the terms of a loan from the International Monetary Fund. The price of cooking gas, which is used mostly by the poor Egyptians, was also increased. A mother in Uganda who was awarded nearly $7,000 in compensation following the death of her son in police custody says justice has not been done. The High Court in Kampala ruled that 17-year-old Ronald Bachiahaga was beaten badly and tortured before being left to die in a prison cell. It's rare in Uganda for financial payouts to be made for deaths in police custody, and while it has taken over a decade for the family to receive the judgment, it's still not clear what happened to the police officers involved. Catherine Biaruhanga has more.
12 years after her son's death, Joyce Namata's grief still feels fresh.
He was everyone's child and people loved him a lot. No one had a complaint about him. He was a jovial person and had lots of friends.
This is an old photograph of Ronald Bichahaga. He was actually 17 years old when he died in police custody. His mother has been fighting for compensation. Joyce is shocked they have only been awarded 25 million Ugandan shillings or $6,700 US. The decision was made in chambers and she wasn't at the court.
I first heard the news on the radio on my small phone. At first, I thought they must be lying. 25 million for my child?
Ronald was out in the evening watching a movie at this video hall hours before he was killed. Witnesses say that there was a scuffle outside the video hall when 3 officers came to arrest Ronald. They then started beating him with batons and squeezed his private parts to make sure he succumbed to their pressure. They then dragged him to the nearest police station. His family and neighbors followed them there.
This used to be the police station, Nabingo police station, where my brother was brought. He was shouting, they are taking me, but I don't know what I've done.
The community here was outraged at Ronald's unlawful death. The landlord of this property kicked out the police. They've since moved just across the road. For several days now, we've been trying to find out what happened to the officers involved in Ronald's death. The authorities won't give us a response. The family now plan to appeal the court decision and are demanding $80,000 from the government. It's already been a difficult journey, but Joyce and her family strongly believe they deserve justice. Catherine Biaruhanga, BBC News, Nabingo Town, Uganda.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News with me, Peter Okwache. Still to come on the program, forgetting their troubles with football, how the Africa Cup of Nations is providing a welcome distraction for fans of host country Egypt. I'm Peter Okwache. The top story this hour. There have been celebrations in Sudan after the military and opposition agree a deal for a 3-year transitional government. You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. It's now time for some sports. Let's join Piers Edwards in Cairo. And Piers, the last 16 are starting to battle it out for progression in the Africa Cup of Nations.
They certainly are, Peter. Yes, that's right. I'm here in Egypt, in Cairo, where the first of the knockout clashes is going on. It's between Morocco and Benin, and it's been a bit dramatic so far. After Morocco missed some early chances, Hakim Ziyech and Younes Belhanda wasting opportunities, Benin took the lead. Moïse Adelehu from a corner just before the hour, and then just when it looked like Benin might hold on, well, Morocco equalised 15 minutes from time. Younes Mnendri, and I can tell you that we're in stoppage time at the end of the game, 1-1. It looks like we're going to extra time. We'll try and bring you updates later in this sequence. Now, later tonight, Senegal take on Uganda. That's the first time the teams have ever met at the Nations Cup. That's also here in Cairo at the International Stadium. And then tomorrow, a massive clash, a clash of true African heavyweights. 8 titles between them. Cameroon, the defending champions, take on Nigeria's Super Eagles, whose last title came back in 2013 in Alexandria. Some team news from the Nigeria camp today. John Mikel Obi will miss the game with injury. Now we're here from Wilfred Ndidi, whose side were humbled last time out by Madagascar in just a moment. But first, let's hear from the Cameroon camp. Ajax Amsterdam goalkeeper Andre Onana. Well, he's keeping his cousin, Fabrice Ondoa, who was in goal when the Indomitable Lions won the tournament 2 years ago, out of the side.
The competition is good, you know, it's my cousin, we have a good relationship. But like I said before, I have a lot of pressure in the back because everyone is looking at me like, wow, he won the last competition, so everyone expect me to win. But we have to know, we have to be realistic. We will go there to win. I know if you don't win, I'm the first one who they're going to put in the world because he won the last competition. But in football, you can beat everything, and you cannot always win.
For me, I don't see the team being under pressure, you know. For me, I just feel the last game just made everything, like, everyone like realize that there are no small things in the tournament, so it's a must win. But I think there are no pressure for us. We just know what we have to do and get it done.
Game sees Egypt, they've only ever played late at night, by the way, take on South Africa here in Cairo. And for local fans, the Nations Cup has provided a welcome distraction from some of the country's problems, military attacks, fuel prices being hiked, as we heard earlier, and constant economic woes following some tough decisions. Now, Sally Nabil has been out in the Egyptian capital talking to fans to find out what they make of life beyond this competition and beyond.
Perhaps right now there is nothing that fills Egyptians with joy like football. It allows them a space to breathe. When the national team plays, everyone is glued to TV screens and literally praying for victory. Egypt have secured a place in the round of 16 in the African Cup of Nations, a tournament they are hosting after beating Zimbabwe, Congo and Uganda. They have scored 5 goals so far, 2 of them by Mo Salah. The hope of lifting the cup has also lifted the mood here, despite economic woes and political concerns.
It's an indication that we are a great country. If we can organize such an event, we are definitely capable of doing much more important things in the future.
In a local cafe in Cairo, I asked some people about the performance of the national team. They are happy with the results, but they have remarks.
We depend only on 2 players, Salah and Trezeguet, and if they don't do well, the team goes down.
And one man is always present.
Salah has become an idol. Millions of kids want to be Salah. He proved that one simple man can make big achievements through hard work.
Moise agrees and says football sometimes acts like a therapy.
Many people watch football to escape reality. They vent their anger and tension when they shout or cheer during the match.
Egypt is meeting South Africa on Saturday. It has been more than a decade since Egypt has last hosted the AFCON. This is why expectations this time are quite high.
Many Egyptians believe their national team will make it to the final that will be played on July the 19th. For them, football is more than just a game. It's a source of hope. It gives them something to cheer up for and forget about their daily problems, even if only for 90 minutes. Sally Nabil, BBC News, Cairo.
So Egypt in action on Saturday night. On Sunday, it's Madagascar, the debutants, looking to make further history when they take on DR Congo. Also Algeria, Guinea that day. Now, earlier today, the Confederation of African Football Secretary-General met the media. He was asked about whether VAR will be ready to introduce from the quarter-final stage. Don't forget that the African Champions League was wrecked by a VAR row when it didn't work and players did an on-pitch protest and then a replay had to be enforced. But this time around, Mouad Hadji is confident that things are going to go okay.
We must not forget that VAR requires material but also expertise, so we are trying to give training for all African referees so that they can operate VAR for international matches. But I can assure you that for this competition, everything is going well. All the material has arrived, trials have begun, and Friday's Morocco Benin game at the Al Salam Stadium will have offline VAR trials to make sure everything works. So I can assure you, we will have VAR from the quarterfinal onwards.
And before we go, late drama in the Morocco-Benin game. Morocco's Hakim Ziyech missed a last-minute penalty against the post. 1-1 it's ended after normal time. That game has just gone in to extra time, or just about to go into extra time. Peter, back to you.
Many thanks, Piers Edwards there in Cairo. Now, he says that Nigeria is the most beautiful country in the world, and I have to say, I agree. Dayo Adedayo is a photographer who's taken over 4 million pictures of his homeland because he says he wants to show a different image of his country from the one often portrayed in the West. Here's his story.
The way we are being reported in the West is not the way we are. And I'm trying to change the narrative, starting from Nigeria. My name is Dayo Adedayo. I am a photographer, and I've documented Nigeria in and out. It took me over 15 years, going from all the 774 local governments. I have 9 books on Nigeria and over 4 million images. I started documenting Nigeria in 2003. You Google Nigeria for images, you hardly see any fantastic images on Nigeria. And that is like someone suddenly messing and seeing people dying and not being able to make anything to it. So that's the way I felt, to say, oh, okay, let me use my God-given talent to change the narratives of my country. And that is what brought me to the documentation of Nigeria. Nigeria is about 924,000 square kilometers. Nigeria is beautiful, the people are wonderful, and to me, it's the most beautiful country in the world. But without people like us, who are bringing out the visuals, how are we going to know? Just like the oil in the Niger Delta that has been there for millions of years before Shell discovered it to turn into money. So that is part of what we are doing, because there is more to Nigeria than oil and gas. 10 years from today, my dream is to have finished the whole of West Africa. That is what I'm giving Nigeria as a parting gift. Photography has given me an opportunity to express myself, document my country, which is a lifetime project. I've taken it as a lifetime project. Till I die, that is what I'm going to do.
See, I told you Nigeria was beautiful. That's it on Focus on Africa for today from me, Peter Okwoche, and the rest of the team. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.